Wednesday's crackdown on protests at the University of Texas brought mixed responses from our elected leaders. On Thursday, Congressman Greg Casar spoke at a rally on campus and condemned the arrests. Congressman Lloyd Doggett said it was wrong for Governor Abbott to call the protesters anti-Semitic. Doggett and Casar are both Democrats. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Ted Cruz voiced support for the response from police and DPS, and Senator John Cornyn praised UT officials for preventing the protests from reaching levels seen at other universities. Joining us this afternoon for a live interview is Senator John Cornyn. Senator, thank you for being here. We appreciate that.
Good to be with you.
You know, those demonstrations, they happened at a number of UT campuses all across the state. Yep. However, we did not see the level of law enforcement response that happened in Austin at those other campuses. Why do you think the approach in Austin was so different?
Well, I do think it was in light of what had happened in Columbia, for example, and Yale and other places around the country where the thing had really escalated and spun out of control. I think the officials at the University of Texas here in Austin wanted to make sure that while they respected the free speech rights of the protesters, as they should, that the rights of the students to pursue their education wasn't impinged upon, or that it didn't become violent. So I think they were very prepared, it's obvious, and but that's the balance that you have to strike in situations like this.
Something that you did earlier this week seemed pretty prescient. You joined 26 other Republicans in the Senate there to send a letter to the Attorney General and the Education Secretary, and in it you wrote this: they need to take action to restore order and protect Jewish students on our college campuses. I'm really wondering, though, do you see students voicing opposition to what Israel is doing in Gaza as anti-Semitic?
Well, it depends on the case-by-case basis. I'd hate to paint with a broad brush anybody exercising their rights, and it is a tough call. Obviously, Hamas, which is a proxy for Iran, attacked innocent Israelis on October the 7th and took a lot of innocent lives. I've traveled there in January myself and saw some of that and talked to some of the families whose children were still, and family members still being held hostage. But it's not an either or, obviously. We need to make sure that we do support our ally, Israel, in their fight against proxies that want to basically wipe them off the face of the planet. But again, I think it's hard to generalize and say that everybody who's protesting Israel's reaction to the Hamas attacks is anti-Semitic, but certainly some of it is. And I think it's important to make sure that people understand that this could spin out of control, and that's why I think the UT officials here in Austin, not so much in Dallas or in San Antonio, did prepare for the worst and reacted very quickly.
In your position, you are elected statewide,
Yep.
and some of these protesters, these students who are there at UT, are some of your constituents. What do you say to those who are upset about Israel's handling of the war with Hamas and the killing of people in Gaza?
Well, obviously, if there was a ceasefire, Israel would put down its arms, but Hamas would not. These are people driven by an evil ideology. Again, Iran is the head of the octopus, so to speak. Many tentacles reaching in places like Lebanon and in Yemen, where the Houthis and the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. But they're all determined to basically eliminate Israel as an independent state and to basically wipe it off the face of the planet. So this is a war that's been going on a long time, particularly since 1979 when the Iranian Revolution occurred. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans have been killed in the process. So I think it's important for people to be educated and informed about the whole picture and the context in which this is happening, and not just look at it like you're looking through a soda straw at one little piece of it.
One other thing that happened this week that was pretty significant is that there was billions of dollars in assistance sent to both Israel and Gaza. That foreign aid package passing, and you supported that measure. However, there were 15 of your Republican colleagues who did not. There's also potential that this particular package could lead to the ouster of House Speaker Mike Johnson. So I'm wondering, why is there such contention about these foreign aid packages, or maybe parts of it, within your party?
Well, I think, if you look back at our history leading up to World War II, there was a very strong anti-international or foreign aid, international security obligation that the U.S. government has always historically held. We are, whether we like it or not, the indispensable leader to maintain world peace, and we do that through our military strength and supporting our allies. And this bill that you mentioned included a lot of different components. It included aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine, to the Indo-Pacific, particularly to discourage China from invading Taiwan, and then to replenish some of the stocks of our weapons that we have been depleting by giving them to Ukraine. But history does have a way of repeating itself, and I thought it was very important not to encourage Putin to continue his march across Ukraine, where I do not believe he will stop, and to prevent bigger regional and maybe worse conflicts.
We also want to mention that you're running to potentially become the Republican leader in the U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. Is part of your role and your pitch to be able to focus on some of these foreign aid packages and maybe get some of those other senators and perhaps some of the Republicans in the House on board with that?
Well, we saw that, as you pointed out, it wasn't unanimous, and right. That's one of the geniuses, really, of the way that senators are elected to each state, but all 50 states. And there's differences not only philosophically, but ideologically, and then just different regional priorities depending on where you come from. I have the privilege of representing 30 million plus Texans and growing, and we're a big diverse state ourselves, and not everybody's going to agree to any single vote or course of action. But it's my job to try to explain on occasions like this why I voted the way I did. Some people may continue to disagree with me, and I understand that. And it's important for me to listen to them and what their reasons are, but that's part of the conversation that goes along with representing a big, diverse state like Texas.
Because there is competition for that Republican leadership position, when will that decision be made?
It'll be made in November after the election. So I know who the voters are. It's going to be all the Republicans in the Senate. Hopefully there'll be more then than there are now. After the election, and it's based on relationships and trust. And I've been in the Senate a long time now, and I've been there when it's worked well and when it has not worked well under current leadership of Senator Schumer. So I'd like to get the Senate back working again to try to solve problems on a bipartisan basis, then help move the country forward and hopefully make the rest of the country a little bit more like Texas.
Okay, Senator, we would have so many more questions for you, but we're running out of time, so we appreciate you joining us and making time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have more context on all of this coming up. In fact, we'll hear from some students who were claiming they heard anti-Semitic remarks during Wednesday's protest. Hear from them and also university officials about this experience coming up in just a bit. It's not just